Is anybody else feeling a little bit stressed out lately? No? Just me? Probably everyone in Washington. Well, let's get into it.
Welcome to Political Playlist.
All right, are we ready, guys?
Happy Hour.
Happy hour.
We fucked that up so bad.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Political Playlist Happy Hour. I'm Anna Muskie-Goldwyn.
I'm Anthony Barquette.
Did you just burp right before you said your name? Wow, that was not subtle at all.
Yeah, wow.
And we're definitely not going to cut that.
Yikes. Well, we're all humans, Anna. Okay?
We're all humans.
And I also feel stressed out.
You do? What's the thing that's the most stressing you out right now?
I feel like there's only less than a month to get stuff done before the end of the year.
Right.
So
I would argue
it's
less.
just
I feel like once Thanksgiving happens, people just like completely check out.
really drop off. So yeah. It's going to be a rough Christmas.
Sad.
Yeah.
Well, we're flying without Michael today because we have a fun little political playlist project in the works that we'll talk about soon. And he is dealing with a lot of stuff regarding that. So Anthony and I are here solo, and we're gonna just talk shit about him for the next hour. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. For starters, what hair gel does he use?
I don't think Michael uses hair gel. I feel like it's very like
doesn't
fluff.
look great. He should.
Now we'll know if he's going to listen to this episode because he'll definitely comment on that. But we have a lot to talk about today. We are going to talk about Elise Stefanik, Congresswoman from New York, who is now running for governor of New York, and what that says about the state of New York. We are going to talk about how to talk about healthcare and the spotlight that now has been put on the healthcare industry through the shutdown. And then we're going to give you a nice little win of the week that we're pretty stoked about with this something happening at the Supreme Court and gay marriage, for a little teaser. But before we get to all of that exciting stuff, the government is still shut down. However, it's coming to an end. How are you feeling about it?
I mean,
that's the correct answer.
Yeah. I mean, my take is I definitely understand why some of these Democratic senators are voting to end it, because there's been tons of damage that's happened. I really think, though, people were just starting to feel it, like this week.
Yeah.
Paychecks and whatnot. So the pain didn't really like happen until this week. That might be very far off statement since I wasn't like fully affected by it.
Yeah.
But I think the Democrats made a very wrong decision in what they just did.
Yeah. So let's talk about what they did. So basically where we're at right now, we are recording this on Monday evening because we had to record a day early. So we're going to release this on Tuesday, which means Veterans Day, which means that the government might still be shut down when you're listening to this, probably, but it's coming to an end. What is happening right now on Monday is that the Senate is taking procedural votes to finalize the deal that 8 moderate Democrats basically drew up with Republicans to end the shutdown. All 8 of these people are not up for re-election. And like I said, all of them are fairly moderate, except arguably Dick Durbin from Illinois, who's a little bit more left than moderate, but he also is notably the Democratic whip, which means that he is responsible for kind of like getting votes for legislation. So it's not totally surprising that he voted for this. And he's also retiring. So he's also not on the chopping block in 2026. And the calculation basically is kind of what Anthony said, which is that for them, they felt that the shutdown was a more immediate threat to their constituents than the issue of continuing to highlight the spiking healthcare premiums, which is what Democrats are trying to use as leverage in this fight. And we're going to get into the healthcare side of it in a bit. But it's important to note that there's a couple more steps here. So the bill still has to clear the House, which it will because Republicans control the House and they only need a simple majority in the House, unlike in the Senate. And then it has to be signed by Trump to officially open the government. However, this is only for a couple months. This is a temporary continuing resolution which keeps things at the current funding levels until the end of January 2026. So in about a month and maybe a week, like mid-December, we're going to have to go through all of this all over again. And at this point, it has been the longest shutdown in American history at 41 days, which
And
is super cool.
the last longest was when Trump was last in office, and it lasted during that January timeframe.
Yeah, it's almost like Trump being in office creates an environment where this kind of thing can happen.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's not point fingers, Anna. Okay?
I'm just saying, it's like it's if the shoe fits, right? Isn't that the saying? On that note, though, I saw a really interesting statement from one of the young politicians we cover who is newer, and we haven't talked about her a lot. And I was wondering if you would allow me to read it.
Please.
Don't burp while I'm talking.
I'll try not to.
So this is from Representative Maggie Goodlander, who is a new representative from New Hampshire. And I won't read her whole statement, but she basically said she said this: the pain that a government shutdown inflicts on hardworking Americans is real. And that's why I'm leading bipartisan legislation to prevent government shutdowns and make sure we never reach this point again. And then she says later, she is not accepting the proposal. She's one of the members of the Democratic caucus in the House, but that she feels that shutdowns themselves are not something that we should even have to deal with. And frankly, I agree with her. Like, why is this allowed to happen?
I couldn't agree with that more. And a lot of politicians actually talked about that because as many Republicans tried to say this was a clean CR, it wasn't. And it's kind of funny because in the Senate right now, Senator Rand Paul, Republican senator from Kentucky, was objecting to one of the clauses. And I guess he wants to strip a provision from the package that would prevent unregulated sale of intoxicating hemp-based products. So he's standing up for the Kentucky hemp industry. I'm like, why the fuck is this
part of it
in there? Like, who slid that in?
It's so funny. Yeah, I think that like there's obviously a lot of rhetoric on both sides, and I agree with you though what you said earlier. Like, I just feel like, I feel two things. One, this was inevitable, right? Like Democrats were never going to get everything they wanted from this, which was mainly an assurance on healthcare premiums because they're not in power. But I think that to your point, if they had waited a little bit longer and showed that they were willing to fight and do what Republicans do, which is frankly like allow people to hurt a little bit in order to get something real and bigger done. I think that strategically it's just, look, I think it's amazing for the people who are going to get their SNAP benefits, for people who need to travel, who are suddenly going to have their flights rebooked, for who else? Basically those people. The federal workers obviously are going to get their jobs back. But I think that in the larger grand scheme of like the political struggle here, it just it just felt like, okay, yeah, suddenly people are not doing well. So we gotta come to our senses and make a deal. And I just feel like it's doing exactly what specifically like loyal Democratic voters have been criticizing the party of for so long, which is breaking under stress.
They're very hard to support, honestly, when they do stuff like this. And so then are we going to stop the government, shut down the government again in January when this is up?
Well,
like,
I mean, now they're
just
saying
push for a 6-month window
totally
to leave the government open.
And we'll talk about healthcare more in a sec, but like now there's, the part of the agreement is that the Republicans are saying, oh, okay, well, we're going to agree to have negotiations about the ACA subsidy extensions. And some people, progressives, but pretty much everybody is saying like, that's bullshit. Like that isn't a promise of a vote or even a negotiation is not really anything real, because the only thing real is legislation. And we all know that Trump probably wouldn't sign that legislation on its own. So, but I do feel like I have a good segue if you would entertain me.
I would love that. Please.
So
entertain me.
What's that phrase? Do I not entertain you? What is that thing from the movie? I don't know. We can cut
does
that.
this not entertain you?
Does this not entertain you?
Yeah.
So what people are saying, though, is that there's pretty much one Democrat who's on the chopping block for all of this. And do you know who that is?
Schumer.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
It is Chuck Schumer. I was scrolling on Instagram and saw a post from College Dems, so like the general College Dems group, and it's a picture of Chuck Schumer. It says coward. It has the phone number of his office, and the picture has the words American traitor over his photo. So, Dems ain't happy with Chuck Schumer. I'm frankly not happy with Chuck Schumer. I'm like, you've been doing this forever and you're getting steamrolled like a little bitch. Come on.
Also, do they think we're dumb? Like how this was done? Like they're like, oh yeah, no one's going to notice that none of these people are up for re-election
right,
soon.
Right.
So you guys are all our sacrificial lamb.
Totally.
Right? It's just, once again, it makes you bring up a lot of other things the Democrats have done in the past, going back to Kamala as well. And you go, was that the right decision?
Right. Not letting things play out really is the theme.
Yeah.
Well, the segue that I was thinking of is because what state does Chuck Schumer represent?
New York.
And who else is from New York?
Singing voice. AOC.
And?
Elise Stefanik, Mike Waller, Mondani.
Well, Elise Stefanik, because that's what we're going to talk about.
Oh, okay. We're talking about her next? Oh, nice. Okay.
On our playlist this week is
Elise Stefanik. Many of you know her as being a New York congresswoman, but she was also supposed to be the ambassador to the UN.
And that really failed for her, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think it went to Mike Waltz instead.
Yeah, I think now, after the Signal chat, he now slid into that role.
Yeah, stand-up character. It shows how important that role is. When you can have something terrible happen that you did, and then you still get the position to be the ambassador to the UN.
Wild.
Yikes. Well, anyways, Elise, I feel like just calling her that because I feel like I've known her for years. She decided to announce her run for governor of New York the day after the elections took place. In her launch video, which was titled "From the Ashes," she framed
it wasn't.
It was.
That's so stupid.
Feels like a movie or like a song. She frames New York as fallen under the current leadership and promised to make the state affordable and safe. I feel like a Laura Trump song coming out
totally.
From the ashes.
I can see that.
Obviously, she criticized the incumbent, Kathy Hochul, who will be running for governor again. Or actually, she took over her seat, but she has another
election
term left. Election. And then leading up to the announcement, she's also already sort of built some infrastructure in place for herself. So she's created a PAC named Save New York. She's been raising pretty significant funds, and she's aligning with other GOP leadership in the state. So I think just a couple of things from me from strategic motivations for her is she's really taking the opportunity and the momentum, I think, of like a Republican running for this seat. It's also for her, she has gained a lot of notoriety over the last few years on a national profile, just being a close ally of Trump. And then, she was, I think at the time, the youngest person to be put up for the ambassador role.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that alignment though, because that's what I find kind of interesting about this announcement is I think anyone of us who have been following Elise knew that this probably was going to happen at some point, right?
Uh-huh.
But I feel like post 2024, people were like, oh yeah, New York is moving to the right. Republicans got some congressional seats in districts like Lawler's that were really purple. You saw a lot of shifting towards the right. But then you kind of see Mamdani win in the heart of New York, which is New York City. I think that you see people in other states like Spamberger, et cetera, winning as moderate Democrats. And that kind of makes me ask the question, was New York becoming more red, or did New York just want something different because they, like the rest of the country, were not feeling good about the economy, about all those other issues? And so I'm wondering if, like, Elise being so now aligned with Trump, like, is that strategy actually going to hurt her now in this general election for governor of a typically Democratic state?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a bet that she has to take, though, right? There's a lot of people freaked out about Mamdani, but then when you looked at some of the polling, especially for New York City, it's so heavily Democratic that a Democrat was going to win, right? But I think a lot of people are scared of him, and I think she has a pretty solid chance of, just once again being the younger candidate coming in here against Hochul. And I just don't know anyone who really likes her.
Hochul?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's true, but I also don't know anyone who dislikes her other than Republicans. I don't think I don't think that she's like viewed poorly within like the Democratic circles in New York. And I think that's probably by design. She's not really a polarizing figure, I would say. I guess like my question is, I'm just curious to see what the results are like and what the primary situation is like. I mean, I think Elise Stefanik will win the primary for sure, but I just feel like, would someone like Mike Lawler have maybe had a better chance in the general election, even though he doesn't have as much name notoriety? I think that he has more broad appeal. And I feel like when we first started covering Elise, she was so, I felt like she was really from where she was from. Like, she felt very of upstate New York. She felt like she was talking about kitchen table issues. She was this like really kind of hopeful young woman in the Republican Party that I think has since really turned their back on women after kind of trying to elect a bunch of them. And so I just wonder.
Money and power does that to you.
For sure, 100%. You would know a little thing about that, huh?
Yeah, I usually look down on women.
Oh, shut up.
It's women looking down on other women, though.
That's true. You know what? We got a woman on woman race. So I'm into that, I guess, for one of the most consequential states in the country. So that will be an interesting race to watch. And Elise is definitely someone that it's worth knowing about her, even if you don't agree with her. I mean, she's a really interesting character in the political story of our time. And you'll probably be hearing about her a lot more now that she's running for governor. Mm-hmm. So with that said, let's move on to how to talk about. And today we're going to talk about healthcare premiums. Woo! Because as people know that, and as we mentioned before, healthcare premiums have been the focus, the pretty much sole focus of congressional Democrats in this shutdown. They've been using the shutdown to find a chance to shine a spotlight on the increasing ACA, aka Obamacare, subsidies, because there had been the increasing costs, because there had been a subsidy on these ACA premiums, and now that subsidy will be over, and they wanted to have a permanent extension that Republicans obviously did not want the government to be paying for. So can you tell us a little bit about what these premiums were like, what they're going to be like, what the subsidies are, and kind of why Democrats cared so much about this specific issue?
Yeah, well, I think you're hearing about it a lot, especially in the news and then from our politicians as well, because the threat of these subsidies expiring has created some sticker shock scenarios. You hear a lot of politicians saying it's going to be 3, 4, 5x more, depending if you're an individual or family. So people who are renewing or choosing their plans for 2026 are seeing these massive hikes. I was one of those. Um, so, but what the shutdown means for states and insurers is they have to submit 2 sets of rate filings, one assuming subsidies continues or one assuming they don't. Then that leads the insurers to hedge by proposing higher rates if subsidies lapse, which pushes premiums up, even today. And then those higher premiums and like risk of coverage loss feed into the whole broader healthcare spending is rising. More people are exposed to higher costs, more pressure on state programs, more risk of uncompensated care, and then which is all leading to this provider charge. So just something that pertained to me was I was on a really basic plan because I don't have a salary anymore and I'm in California. So I was able to go through Cover California. My rate went up 3x.
Wow.
And I had to lock it in like last week. So I didn't really have a time to stop and hold off on the shutdown and see what would continue.
Right.
So, and I kept getting pinged, like, if you don't do it, like this offer might not be there.
Right.
And then I was like looking to see what the other offers were, and they were way more expensive than this other really cheap option, which was still 3 times more. So I took that option and just hoping for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very frustrating. I think that these ACA subsidies are very popular. Obamacare is very popular. Even actually primarily in Republican districts, people are on Obamacare, although they don't even maybe sometimes understand that they are on Obamacare. They think they're on the the Affordable Care Act, which is the same thing. And I think that what is frustrating to me is I can sympathize with the conservative argument that this is very costly for government to have these subsidies going. But the problem that I think it always pisses me off about Republicans trying to do things like this is that it's immediate. It's like, okay, well, there's going to be no subsidies or there's going to be subsidies. And it's like, well, if you're in power and you have these conservative ideals, what is stopping you from having some sort of a gradual fall off so that people like you or everyone else, like it sucks what happened to you. Could you imagine if you had children who were dependents on you, on your healthcare plan, and if you were also maybe struggling with food security and also had to pay for them to go to school? Like there's all these other costs that I think specifically families are finding themselves on. And I just never understand like the cruelty of the immediate stopping of something like this that's going to have such a drastic effect on people's finances, and specifically when it's healthcare, because then it like literally becomes life or death. We had just a quick anecdote, like Billy and I are both on union insurance, and the way that union insurance works is that you either have to make a certain amount of money or work a certain number of hours to qualify for that health insurance. And there was a problem with the hours that Billy had been like awarded from a previous job, and he didn't meet the the hour minimum, but he thought that he had, because some of his hours apparently hadn't been counted, so now he has to call. And like this happened literally yesterday, and it's so then it was this thing where I realized, I was like, oh my God, we literally didn't have healthcare for like 5 days or whatever it was this month, and because it goes month by month. And it just like was this moment, like it's going to be fine. He has to call the union and get it sorted out and all this stuff. But like it kind of gets to you, and it becomes this like really emotional thing, which shouldn't be the thing that we're thinking about. Like we shouldn't be getting scared and emotional and stressed about the idea of being able to go to the doctor or, God forbid, pay for a hospital bill in an emergency. And so I think that like this whole issue is so much deeper than just the stroke of a pen. Yes, subsidies, no subsidies. And so I do appreciate at least the Democratic effort to shine a spotlight on it. And I want to say I'm optimistic that there will be Republicans who can try to convince their party that they should come up with an alternative solution than cutting it. But I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, Speaker Johnson even said after this deal's been reached that there's no surety that this is going to be coming to the House floor anyways. Yeah. But
I think the Senate will talk about it, but the House won't, and then it won't be anything.
You did make a good point though, Anna, where like with this shutdown, a lot of things, the general public now understand SNAP benefits, the ACA subsidies, and people, because I mean, even someone like me, I was like, oh, I don't think this is going to, have an effect on me. And then when I went to my plan, I was like, well, wait, 2025, 20, what?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's wild.
Someone's going to have to cool down on the martinis.
Well, I will highlight that there's one young Republican we cover who has been fighting for bipartisan support for some of these extensions, and that is Mike Lawler, who I just mentioned. And I don't know if you remember, we were texting back and forth because Lawler confronted Hakeem Jeffries outside of Jeffries' office a couple weeks ago, basically saying, like, you're not negotiating good faith. Like, you guys are shutting down the government when there's a group of us who are saying that we want to negotiate about these healthcare subsidies. I think that was a very brave move from Lawler. And I understand where he's coming from. And I found, a statement from his website that I thought was important to point out. He said, instead of coming to the table to work out a bipartisan compromise that extends ACA credits, Hakeem Jeffries is playing political games with people's livelihoods. And it's so interesting because we interviewed Lawler right at the beginning of the shutdown, actually, like right before it happened. And he came out and said, I've always supported a clean resolution. I voted against my party under Biden when Democrats had control of Congress and Republicans were doing this. And now he's obviously trying to convince Democrats to not hold up any of these votes and just have a clean resolution. And I've said on here before that I respect that. I think someone who can stick to their guns on that kind of thing is correct. I think the struggle that Lawler is going to have is that he and some other moderate Democrats who might feel this way of wanting to protect the subsidies, of which I think there are several of them, moderate Republicans, they're going to have a tough time because I think that this isn't a priority for their party. Mike Johnson specifically isn't going to want to get in this fight. And I think that I hope that, I guess, there's a group of bipartisan lawmakers, including people like Lawler, who can try to push this forward. But like, I really don't have hope for that.
Yeah. Like, is this the fight that they're going to take on?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
It might be Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I mean, God, you know what's so funny? Like, when we started this, I remember she was elected, and I think she's like in her early 50s now. So she was in like her late 40s. And so we were like, oh, thank God we don't have to cover her. She's so cuckoo, right? And now I'm like, damn, I wish that we were covering Marjorie Taylor Greene. It seems like someone literally lobotomized her and like changed her personality.
Maybe that's what the Dems should focus on more. Lobotomizing Republicans, and maybe Democrats will do better.
Speaking of healthcare, just get back to lobotomies. I had another, before we get onto our win, I saw a statement from another young politician who we've talked about a little bit, but her name is Hillary Schulten. She's a moderate Democrat from Michigan. She won the seat that Peter Meyer used to represent. We used to talk about him a lot. Yes. He was a pretty moderate Republican. And so she represents like a district that is pretty split. I think it's become more Democratic, but nonetheless, I thought, her position is kind of important. And she is among the chorus of Democrats in the House. I wouldn't be surprised if they all vote against this, who is saying that, they're not going to vote for this. And she called it a false choice between the needs for affordable health care and the need to open the government. And it's funny because I guess my question, and this is like a little bit cynical, what did Democrats want to happen? Like, they were never going to get I don't think they were ever going to get like the subsidies reinstated, right? So what is the false choice that she's talking about, I guess?
Yeah, and now I think that's what people are asking too. Is they're like, what was the fight for?
Right.
If there was no chance you were going to get those subsidies, SNAP kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't like everyone's losing their food benefits all of a sudden. Getting up to that, I was like, now this is going to expire, and I think, yeah, just once again with the Democrats caving on this, you go, what was the freaking point?
Well,
In 2 more weeks,
and the messaging
yeah,
around SNAP, it's like Trump, that was literally Trump. Like he was the one that was deciding not to fund that, right? Like the
yeah,
reason it came out of nowhere is because in past government shutdowns, SNAP has always remained funded
yeah,
through other channels of government funding temporarily. And then of course, like Trump is ordered by the courts to fund it, and he says that he's not going to. And then states say that they're going to step in and fund it. And the USDA, which controls SNAP benefits, says that states have to back down and stop trying to fund it. And so I think for Democrats, it's like, God, you had such a good message. Like you had such a good argument to be like, we're not the ones who are cutting off SNAP. I think that honestly, SNAP was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think for me, at least emotionally, that was like the thing that was really getting to me is seeing all these videos from food banks. And I'm like, why the hell does like this local, I saw a video of a guy who started like a food bank at his house where he would like put out food overnight. People would come get it. And it was kind of, like clandestine. So people
yeah.
didn't feel embarrassed. And I'm like, that's an amazing story. But why is that happening? Like why?
I
Like
know
why do we
it's
live in a
really
country where that has to be the thing, right?
it's really sad. Yeah,
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens with these healthcare premiums. I think it is just so crazy hearing your story, and then I literally popped into my head that I was like, oh yeah, I had a health insurance thing happen to me yesterday. It is so stressful.
I and like for someone like me, I don't have kids. I'm not dealing with like major health issues right
Yeah,
now. I honestly feel really bad for people.
I
I
know.
mean, until you go through the system, you realize how bad it is.
Well, and even when you have good insurance, you realize how ridiculous it is. Like the co-pays on things, all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't know what the solution is, but I will say that I think coming into 2026, a lot of these Democrats, and specifically then 2028, a lot of Democrats who have consistently stuck to their guns on universal health care or something like Pete Buttigieg has said of like Medicare for all who want it, like that kind of stuff. I feel like it's never been a sexy issue. And I wonder if Democrats have done something at least here that people can remember, at least in the next election cycle. Um, because I think this is the first time that like a lot of people are going to see a real traumatic shift in their costs of healthcare.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know, but I think. Um, so anyway, should we move on to some good news?
Yeah, please.
So, the Supreme Court has officially rejected to hear a case that could have paved the way to overturn the previous ruling legalizing gay marriage in the United States. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, gay marriage now has broad appeal. This is fucking ridiculous that we're even still talking about it. And I wanted to just tell a little anecdote if you would indulge me.
Yeah, can I just say really
Please.
quickly, when I saw this, that they were thinking of taking it up, I was like, this is such a backwards moment in the world.
Totally.
Like that shouldn't even be an issue to be discussed anymore.
Completely. So I was in Mexico City last weekend for one of my really good friends' wedding, and he's gay, and we were at the ceremony, and the woman who officiated the wedding was his childhood best friend's mom, who came out as lesbian later in life and is now
Whoa.
married to a woman, but like very blended family, like still, you know, the dad and the mom were both there. She was there with his wife, etc. And she officiated the wedding, and I'll try to keep this short, but basically after she said all the nice stuff about the couple, she had a moment in the officiating where she talked about the legalization of gay marriage in Mexico. And Mexico is a very religious country, very Catholic country. You know, the first state in Mexico to legalize gay marriage was the state in Mexico City. And then it actually took like a decade for all of the states to legalize it until it was nationally legalized. But what's really interesting is she pointed out something that I didn't know, because I don't think a lot of us know this. So in America, the reason that Oberfell, is that how you say it? This case that legalized it. The reason that case went in the direction of legalization was because it was all about anti-discrimination. And it was in America, it was about that you can't discriminate in giving people this basic right of marriage because of who they want to be married to. In Mexico, discrimination is a part of it, but a big part of the court decision is actually about the preservation of the family. And she made a big point about this, that in Mexico, basically, they see that allowing same-sex couples to be legally married is not just an act of anti-discrimination. It is an act of preserving the family unit. And I think that and it was really beautiful, because I think like so much of it gets lost in the sauce of the like that you get, you know, better taxes when you're married, and like you can be medically be more connected to somebody if something happens and all that stuff. And I think that we're in a time now, like you said, it's a little backwards, where people who are in same-sex marriages are now being discriminated against more in terms of their ability to be good parents or adopt children or things like that. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing, that in Mexico, it is in the legal decision that family element is an important part of why gay marriage is the right thing to do.
Yeah. That's cool. I love that history lesson.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And, you know, I thought it was notable. I was looking this up, that in order for a case to come forward, at least 4 of the 9 justices need to vote to hear the case, which means that with the 3 liberal justices, that there were at least 2 conservative judges, one of whom we can assume is Justice Roberts. So one of the others did not vote to advance this, or more, but at least one other. My money's on Brett Kavanaugh, but I don't know.
I was going to say he kind of got the headlines.
Yeah, well, he's
recently.
like, I mean, I feel like it was so funny because all of the like hoopla around his confirmation, which was very upsetting, frankly, but like he is turning out to be sort of the next most moderate after Roberts. And so anyway, I think that's a win. And
well, you missed the important part about that wedding, where Shakira performs.
Oh my God. So let me tell this really quickly and then we'll get off. So I went to this wedding, and they do the toasts, and then the grooms get up and say a little thing. And then they're like, okay, and before we dance, we have a performer. And so this like woman comes out in this crazy costume, and she's kind of far away. She's like on the dance floor, and it's a Shakira impersonator. And to this day, I still have to ask, I don't know if it was a woman or a drag queen. So I will report back. Either way, she was amazing. But I posted a video that was, again, kind of at a distance of quote unquote Shakira singing. And the number of people, including Michael Kristoff, message me like, oh my God, Shakira performed at the wedding that you're at. And I had to then post another thing on my Instagram being like, just to clarify, that was not actually Shakira. But it was pretty funny because I really didn't think that it looked that real, but apparently it did.
Well, you have a lot of dumb followers, including Michael, so it makes sense.
God, so rude. Did you think it was her?
I didn't see it, actually, which is surprising.
Oh, okay.
So.
Anyway, love is love.
Love is love.
Cheers.
Cheers.